The protagonist replied that he would have to look at it with his eyes wide open. The guy told Kin to look at his tablets. There is a number on each plaque. Whoever has the same number with him will be his opponent. The protagonist had number 5. He was wondering who would fall under his arm in the first round. The guy told those with number 1 to get ready for a duel. The rest must leave the fighting area of the arena. 2 people entered the arena, and one of them was a purple Cyclops. The first duel began. They both folded their hands and said they were ready to start. Then the Cyclops opened his mouth and let out a huge better fire. Immediately, his opponent plopped down on the ground. The evil Cyclops immediately began to taunt his opponent. Wang, watching this quick battle, laughed and noticed that even the worthless with the sacred fire of the first rank came here to take a chance. Wang replied that there was an unlimited supply of fools in this empire. Then the second duel began, and the monk also very quickly defeated his opponent using a certain blue aura. The third and fourth duels took place very quickly, literally in a few moments. Finally came the fifth, where the protagonist should fight. He was standing in front of his mighty opponent, who was an order of magnitude bigger than Kin. He said that a cute youngster was standing in front of him and advised him to give up early, then he might survive. Kin just exhaled, gave him the middle finger and asked him not to talk, but rather to attack. Of course, his opponent got angry and immediately used his abilities. The aura of a purple tiger appeared behind him, and he said that he had asked for death himself. The protagonist was surprised by such words and sarcastically asked if it was true. The girl noticed that such a participant could have gone far if he had not caught Kinyu in the first round. The man immediately asked for him with the words that he would die as soon as possible. But with a simple wave of his hand, he literally knocked him out of the arena so that he flew far back and crashed into the wall. All the people watching the fight were very surprised and a little scared by such ferocious power. The girl noticed that one move was enough for Kin to defeat a warrior with a sacred fire of the 3rd rank, and therefore she realized that he was much stronger than she had imagined. Kin was already bored and passing by the evil duo. Wang told him that he was rejoicing early because he didn't have long left. After that, Wang Fei won the 6th duel and Wang Chuan won the 7th. The unnamed participant also won, and Chu Hanyi won. Then the guy standing next to the old man said that he got bored looking at it and suggested that he put bets on it to cheer up the situation. The old man agreed with him and asked what the rest of the respected gentlemen would say. Others also supported this idea. The guy put a bone and muscle strengthening pill of the 3rd rank on Wang Fei. The old man laughed and also decided to bet on him. He delivered a hand-forged weapon, the Sword of Inflexibility. The girl replied that both respected gentlemen had delivered very valuable items. Then her Temple of the Heart of the Buddha will make a proportionate bet. She raised her hand and said that this armor was reinforced with heavenly crystals. The Temple of the Buddha's heart puts on Kin. The huge warrior placed a 3rd rank ruthlessness pill on Wang Chuan. Another girl put the lower black level floating clouds technique on Chu Hanyi. Bets were placed and items soared up. The people looking at them were very surprised. A certain guy noticed that the 4 great sects live too well if they are willing to part with such values for fun. To which the other guy replied that he didn't even have a sacred fire. They understood that if they could not join one of the sects, then perhaps they would at least be taken by the court of revenge. Anything is better than his current life. The mysterious girl laughed and asked what if they had put everything on the wrong ones, to which the guy replied that if all their horses lose, then they will give everything to the winner of the competition. There is nothing wrong with that. The girl was happy about this and roughly calculated that only she and Kin had a chance of winning, from which he was very surprised when she pointed her finger at him. He didn't understand why she turned all the arrows on him. Wang shouted at her to dream on. Maybe she and Kin had a chance to win the Sacred Fire competition if he didn't participate in it. But he felt that they were unlucky. He is firmly aiming to become a winner. The crowd of people agreed with him, because they also knew how to do something and wanted to show themselves. One of the guild came down to the arena and asked them to stop, because it was time to move on to the 2nd round. The 2nd round will be held on the principle of every man for himself. Immediately Wang and Huang looked at the protagonist very viciously. He was standing in the center and everyone was glaring at him and preparing to attack. He understood that, apparently, many of them had already been bribed, so he considered them naive fools. The guy added that the 2nd round will last until one smoking stick burns out. The last 4 standing contestants will advance to the 3rd round. In the 1st round, the weakest were eliminated, and in the 2nd they will have to pass a real fire test. All warriors will be allowed to use only the power of their sacred fire. Edged weapons and hand-to-hand combat are prohibited. He raised his hand and announced that the 2nd round was starting right now. Immediately, all the spectators shouted with delight. Immediately, everyone prepared to attack Kin. They used their fire and told him to die. Qin told him to attack them. He wanted to see if any of them would be able to cause him problems. Everyone got angry, and the guy said that even before he died, his mouth wouldn't close. They all fired their fire at the protagonist from all sides. Zio saw that everyone was a crowd for one and considered it shameless. One of the girls was very worried about Kinyu, and immediately an explosion occurred, where the main character stood in the center. A certain warrior explained that each of his guys has a sacred fire of the 4th rank, and for this moment they specially trained a joint attack. Even if he doesn't die from their blow, then his skin will definitely peel off. Qin asked in surprise, will the skin peel off? He didn't feel the results of their training. Once they were done, it was his turn to surprise them. A huge tornado of fire appeared around him when the hero raised his hand. The old man realized that he was right. Qin has at least a 6th rank fire. Zio shouted with joy that Qin had a 6th rank fire. The protagonist was surprised that these two expected this little fish to do all the work for the two of them. They can't wait to see him dead, so he didn't understand why they were crumpling on the sidelines. Wang got angry and replied that since he had a sacred fire of the 6th rank, then no one here would have any justice for him. He knew that Qin was wrong. There would be bigger fish for every fish. Van, being angry, shouted that he also had a fire of the 6th rank, and now his hour of judgment had come. Zio was surprised that even Wang Chuan had a 6th rank fire. The guy looked at the warrior and realized that the School of the Ruthless Sword also claimed something. Wang and Huang together said that 2 6th rank fire holders were ready to attack him at the same time. Prayers would not help him here. They immediately fired blue and orange fire at the protagonist, who turned into some monsters. Qin replied to them that he was just warming up, and did not understand why they all assumed that his fire was of the 6th rank. He opened his eyes, and immediately a fiery phoenix appeared above him, which literally devoured the enemy fire. He had an incredible aura and the power of fire that made it hard for Wang and Huang to stand. The old man was shocked, because he finally realized that he had a fire of the 9th rank. The other guy was also shocked, because even the head of their Polar Sun clan barely begs for the 8th. All the spectators were shocked that he had such an incredibly powerful sacred fire. Qin stood still and was enveloped in fire. Wang was just in shock and could not believe that he had the 9th fire. The emperor knew that Qin had tricked everyone. He was happy, because in the entire Tan Empire, in its entire glorious history, there were no more than 10 people with the sacred fire of the 9th rank. Remembering these people, the head knew that the weakest of them had long outgrown the peak of the spiritual realm. Of those currently living in the Tan Empire, and indeed on the entire continent, there is hardly anyone stronger than Qin Yu. He laughed and thought it was excellent. He could not have imagined that a fortune teller with fire of the 9th rank would live in his city. The girl was surprised, because even her mentor had fire of the 8th rank, and he seemed to her the strongest warrior in the world. She understood that Qin Yu had a great future ahead of him. One day he would be an excellent replacement for the head of their temple. The girl at the top, looking at the fiery phoenix, realized what Qin had gained while wandering through the desert lands. She turned to her father. In order to form an alliance and become related to the immortal clan, he rejected Qin Yu, and as a result, he himself died at his hands, and deprived the empire of the divine sword of the main talent of the celestial empire. She asked her father, if he was watching this, what he was feeling now. Qin showed them his hand and said that the two of them had a plan, more like a conspiracy against him. But to their regret, they didn't even realize how pathetic they were in the face of the sacred fire of the 9th rank. The protagonist fired at them and they flew away from the arena. Both rivals crashed into the ground and lost consciousness. He didn't want to kill them now, because they might still be useful. When the day of activation of the ancient relic comes, then they will die. Then he created a fire around himself and taking off believed that the competition should be completed. After everyone was convinced that he had a fire of the 9th rank, there is no sense in the 3rd round anymore. He raised his hand and started creating a huge fireball. Zio was surprised and didn't understand what he was doing. The nameless girl realized that this was a heavenly suppression of fire. She thought that this time she had not arrived in the human world for nothing. He sent the ball down with the aim of suppressing someone else's fire. Immediately, a huge carcass of fire rushed down and everyone began to run and flee. Immediately, a huge explosion thundered and a fiery vortex appeared. The emperor realized that during the 2nd round, one participant burns out the fire of all the others. There has never been such a thing in the history of the competition. After the fire died down, and all the people were lying on the ground, Shu Hanni jumped out and considered Qin a real madman. Then a familiar girl also appeared, who thought that her father was right when he said that it can be fun and interesting in the world of ordinary mortals. She hoped that by the time they next met, Qin would be even stronger. The protagonist went down to the arena and realized that he was left alone here. He considered that he was becoming the winner of the competition. All the guild heads were shocked by such a picture, and Huan woke up and realized that he had deprived him of the sacred fire of the 6th rank. He believed that he and only he should have been the winner of the competition. He got very angry and shouted that Qin should live at the bottom of society in the Divine Sword Empire, and not pretend to be a great warrior in their Chan Empire. He wanted to kill him, and he doesn't care what rank. He has fire. He was and remains a non-entity of the first spiritual kingdom. Wang Fei stood up and tore his clothes. He wanted to become a winner today by any means, because no one will stop him. He immediately used the force and jumped straight into the arena. A moment later, he was already on Qin and shouted for him to die. But the protagonist stood unperturbed. The girl shouted at him to dodge and turning around. Qin said that he wanted to give him life, but he refused the gift. He used the Yazi dragon technique, and immediately a purple giant appeared around Qin and growled violently. Wan was surprised and received a blow from the monster. He plopped down on the ground and coughed up blood. He didn't understand why he couldn't kill him. Such scum as he must crawl under his feet, and therefore did not understand how he managed to survive time after time. He won't calm down. He won't accept it for anything. Wan took a spear and, calling it a real trash, threw it straight at Wan at the speed of sound. He flew straight to the wall and crashed into it. His carcass was hanging right above the arena, and everyone saw his body. The old man saw the divine weapon of the first stage and realized what kind of glow he saw when he got here. Wan's body was hanging very high. The old man was outraged that Qin not only had a fire of the 9th rank, but also a weapon of the first stage. The guy shouted how Qin dared to kill the protege of the Polar Sun clan. Qin regained the spear of the god of war and pointed it at him and asked why Wang could try to kill him, but he could not. He warned him that if he kept yapping like a dog, he would kill him too. The guy got angry with his words and wanted to see how he would kill him. Qian Shong immediately intervened and asked him to stop. She said that Qin was now being looked after by the Temple of the Buddha's Heart. If he wanted to fight him, he had to ask her permission first. She asked if he wanted to become an enemy of her temple. Qin asked her not to interfere. If he wants to go to the afterlife after his protege, then she should not interfere with him. Qian Shan was surprised by his words, and the guy got even more angry and replied that he had run into himself. He used the force to jump up and in the air used the technique of the black mid-level polar sun at the zenith. A certain sphere appeared above him, and the girl realized that only 3 of the best students of the Polar Sun clan could master this technique. If executed correctly, it is no less destructive than the black techniques of the highest level. He shouted that even if he had a fire of the 9th rank, even if he had killed a warrior on whom their clan had pinned hopes, but he had nothing to oppose the black medium-level technique. He flew straight at him and shouted that he was dead. A huge sphere rushed at him, which destroyed everything in its path. Qin was surprised when he heard about this technique, and he decided to use his spear. He felt that this was a great reason to use the spear of the god of war in full force. He used the Earth's highest level spear of the heavenly thunderstorm technique. He pierced the sphere with a spear, so that the earth began to break even under Sinai. Immediately, the spear began to enter inside and destroy the sphere. The guy was very surprised and didn't understand what was going on. He was hit by the purple aura of Qin, and the girls realized that this was an earth-level technique. Zio didn't understand how many trump cards Qin had up his sleeve. The old man was very angry and did not understand what had happened to him in the desert lands. Then the guy's body fell to the ground and he couldn't fight anymore. In an instant, Qin walked up to him and pointed his spear at his throat. He told him that he would send him to Huan. Qian Shan shouted that he should not be killed, but Qin did not listen to her and stuck his spear into the body of the spiritual son of the Polar Sun clan. Before he died, he asked the Taoist elder if he would continue to stand aside, and how he would explain himself to his clan for this. The old man got angry and shouted that there was a measure for everything and ordered Qin not to touch him. He created some discs and sent it to Qin, but the protagonist in response called the dragon Yazi to stop the old man's attack. The monster squeezed the disc so hard that it began to crack and after a moment simply collapsed. The dying guy asked his grandfather to save him. Immediately, Qin yanked the spear from his throat. The guy's hand plopped down on the ground, and as Qin said, "Now this dog will keep Wang Fei company in the afterlife." First, Qin killed his beloved disciple, and after that, the spiritual son of the Polar Sun clan, and therefore there is no excuse. And the fact that he was able to awaken the sacred fire of the 9th rank will not save him. The old man wanted to destroy him. Qin laughed in his face at his words. Then he abruptly became serious and replied to this old dog, so that he would see how he himself would not destroy him. He hurt her beloved, mocked her in every way, and has long been his sworn enemy. He pointed his spear at him, which made grandfather a little surprised. The emperor pondered. Since Qin has a long-standing dislike for the Taoist elder, he was wondering who this girl, whom he called his beloved, was. The old man had no idea how he provoked such self-hatred. He is very young, was able to kill Chu Lin, possesses a 9th rank sacred fire and an earth-level technique. He really is extremely gifted. However, the old man used the technique and summoned a little purple skull and noted that he had long since reached the peak of the spiritual realm. Killing him for the old man is like crushing an ant. He summoned the purple whip, the divine weapon of the first stage. The warrior was surprised when he saw the divine weapon of the first stage combined with the black technique of the highest level. It seemed to him that the old man had already decided to kill him. He swung the whip and hit the ground. The protagonist summoned the phoenix and his purple dragon, which mixed into something single, and the energy went into the spear. Kin moved forward with his weapon and the ground broke under Kin. The old man shouted that he was too weak, and immediately Kin flew up and the old man asked what else the protagonist was capable. In the air, Kin was in great pain and shouted to Prince Shen to give him a strength release pill. Jiang Nan was surprised and threw him this pill. After grabbing it, Kin immediately ate it and immediately felt something. There was a blue explosion and something started happening to Kin. The old man laughed at him because it would take many years to assimilate the 4-component strength release pill. He was so stupid that he expected to make a breakthrough immediately after swallowing it. But then he saw another picture. Kin's muscles changed and his clothes literally tore apart on him. There was a mysterious blue dragon seal on his forehead. Then an aura avatar appeared around him, and the old man's legs were literally shaking. He didn't understand how such a thing was possible, as he had already assimilated the power release pill. His strength corresponds to the peak of the spiritual realm, so the old man did not understand how he managed to develop so rapidly after barely swallowing a pill. Immediately, a spear was pointed at him. There were already 3 creatures around Kin: a fiery phoenix, a purple dragon, and a blue demon cat. Kin shouted for that old dog to taste his spear again. He threw a spear at him that was equipped with 3 auras. The old man was very scared and therefore used the purple whip to try to defend against his attack. He twisted the whip to deflect the spear. Immediately, he drove into the old man that the arena cracked under him, and it was very painful and hard for the old man. Immediately there was a strong explosion, which made all the viewers as uncomfortable as possible. Even Emperor Zhen felt the incredible power. Then he opened his eyes and was just in shock. Part of the arena was no longer there, but a silhouette stood in front of him. The old man was standing on his own 2 feet and a lot of blood was dripping from him. After a moment he fell to his knees and the protagonist descended and began to approach him. Kai Shan noticed that he made a breakthrough during the battle, defeated the Taoist elder at the peak of the spiritual realm. Kinyu's strength is much scarier than she could have imagined. The emperor was also in shock. The warrior realized that he was very lucky that he did not accidentally have a snack with this demon. Otherwise he could have doomed the entire merciless sword school to death. Kin slowly approached the old man and his spear cut the ground while his opponent was lying on the ground. The old man crawled away and acknowledged his defeat and Kin's victory. He offered him everything he wanted, but asked him not to kill him. But the protagonist only wanted him dead. Immediately he stepped into a certain seal and was surprised. A huge purple seal appeared around him and then he looked up, where some red and black lights were flying. After that, a purple sphere appeared, which completely engulfed Kin. The girl was very worried about the guy. It turned out that Kin was inside the magic circle and the old man started laughing and said that Kin was incredibly gifted. He could even be called the main talent of the continent. But at the same time he was so young and inexperienced. He had spent many years creating this magic circle. As soon as his body was here, his soul would begin to rapidly decompose until it turned into a husk. The old man slowly stood up and continued. He has lived in this world for more than 100 years and managed to ruin many with this technique. He's just a young kid who hasn't had time to see anything in this world yet, but he managed to get proud. He raised his hand and ordered him to burn, but the protagonist stood and did not even move. The old man shouted that as soon as his soul was destroyed, his sacred fire would get to him and laughed a lot. But immediately a blue demon appeared and began attacking the dome. The old man was very surprised and the demon continued to fight that the dome began to crack. After a moment, the demon broke free and the old man finally realized that his magic circle was not working. Immediately, a hand appeared that grabbed the old man by the throat. The protagonist told him that he had seen things in the desert lands that he had never even dreamed of. The protagonist assured him that everything was fine with his magic circle, except that techniques against his soul did not work on him. He called him a pathetic old dog. The old man thought he had everything under control, since he had trampled this earth for more than 100 years. Most people don't know how much evil he has done during this time. But he knows everything about him. The old man shouted that he was blind, but now he understood everything and would not dare to raise his hand against him anymore. Kin raised the old man above his head and he said that by killing Chu Lin, he had insulted the Polar Sun clan. But after killing him, the clan will never rest until they avenge him. He asked for his life to be spared. And from now on he is ready to be at his beck and call. He will help him take revenge on the immortal clan. Immediately, Kin struck 3 quick blows on the old man's left arm, which began to shatter into pieces. The old man howled in pain and Kin released him and he plopped down on the ground. The old man asked him to be smarter, because even protection from the temple of the Buddha's heart will not save him from the punishment of the Polar Sun clan. And by keeping him alive, he will keep himself alive. Qin stepped on the old man's knee and was surprised by his words. He replied that his life belongs only to him. No one can take it away from him. And even more so, she does not depend on him, so I was not happy. How dare he put such conditions? Then he hit the other leg and broke the second one. The old man called Qin a real demon. Qin replied to him that if only he knew how much he had to restrain himself not to lash out at him on the day of their meeting at the residence of Prince Jiangnan. But at that moment he was not strong enough yet, and he constantly told himself that he needed to be patient a little. Qin was very angry and could no longer restrain himself. He hit the old man with his fist that he started screaming in pain again. The protagonist assured him that right now his anger would not be pacified. The old man gave up. In the end, it is not shameful to die at the hands of a great warrior. But before he died, he wanted to understand what he had offended him with. Qin stepped on him and grandfather yelled again. Qin replied that in the first year of his reign, he captured King Yao by order of Lai King. Not only did he grind all her bones, but he also chained her in a pit of death in the desert lands. The pit of death is known as one of the most terrible places for torturing people. Even the slightest touch to the skin there causes unbearable pain. This fate is much worse than death, and in that place he bullied her for 3 whole months. The old man didn't understand what he was talking about, because Lai King Yao is still alive. He assured that he was not guilty of anything. He asked him not to kill undeservedly. But the protagonist created a ball of fire and ordered him to go to hell. He created an incredibly powerful fire that could be seen from anywhere in the city. In a moment, nothing was left of the old man. Xiao and the emperor were very surprised, and Qin was standing in the place where the old man had been a moment ago. All the girls looked at Qin and were very embarrassed. Finally, the Taoist elder is dead. The next ones in his line are that filthy couple. After that, we are shown the empire of the divine sword. There was a former friend of Qin and his ex-girlfriend sitting there, who was sucking some power out of the girl. Everything depended on whether he could awaken the seal of immortality. Immediately absorbing enough energy, he ordered it to appear, and this entity rushed at him and literally was inside him, from which strange things began to happen to him. Even the spiritual angel was surprised when he felt the incredible power. After a moment, he landed on the ground, and it turned out that this guy had awakened a similar power that Qin had received recently. Zhao Dian laughed. Because it was the supreme seal, he managed to awaken it. His uncle was happy about this. He believed that Lai King's blood would help him awaken the seal of immortality, so he told him to take her as his wife. And she, as a faithful wife, willingly submitted to his needs, but he could not imagine that he would be able to immediately awaken the supreme seal of immortality. He also laughed, because he had not even heard that any of the Zhao immortal clan had managed to do this in the last 10,000 years. Among all the immortals, you can count on the fingers of one hand those who managed to awaken the supreme seal, and he was able to awaken the supreme. Now they can finally return to the immortals. They have nothing more to do among ordinary laypeople. After returning, he should continue to develop his strength. They will unite all the immortals, and the members of the Zhao clan will become their rulers. Immediately, Zhao turned around and told his uncle to follow the rituals. The one who awakens the supreme seal must become the head of the family. His uncle was very surprised, but agreed with him. Zhao replied that since he was right, he should kneel down, and looked at him very angrily. He was a little indignant, but immediately agreed. He likes his determination. That's exactly the kind of leader their family lacked. They need a cold-blooded tyrant. Immediately, he knelt down and said that Zhao Huang, an immortal of the Zhao clan in the 147th generation, welcomes the new head of the Zhao clan. Diane told him to spread the order among the members of their family. Let them descend into this world to bow to him. The uncle agreed with him, while calling him master. Diane ordered him to get up, and he obeyed. He was wondering what to do with Lai King. Diane replied that although she was a mere mortal, she had sunk into his soul because she knows how to be affectionate. He wanted her to stay by his side, and Zhao Huang agreed with him. Then he opened his eyes, and Diane was no longer by his side. After that, we are shown the residence of Prince Jiangnan. The emperor said that he had lived in this world for many years, but no one was as amazing as young Qin did. He is not even 18 yet, but he was able to kill a great Taoist elder. Then he turned around and put his hand on Qin and said that this old man was closely related to the Polar Sun clan. First he killed Chu Lin, and then the Taoist elder. The Polar Sun clan will not rest until it takes revenge on him. Kai Shang added that the Polar Sun clan, although a little stronger than her temple of the heart of the Buddha, but they would not dare to declare war on them. If Qin joins their temple, then she guarantees his complete safety. Another girl asked if she thought the Jasper Fairy clan couldn't protect him. He doesn't have to join her temple. Kai and Shan viciously asked Bai Feifei what she meant by that, to which she replied that Lai King Yao was their best student. Most likely she would become the next head of the clan. Besides, she grew up with Qin and was his faithful friend, so this is a good reason to choose the Jasper Fairy clan. Then Bai stood up and asked if Qin wanted to join her clan. If he joined, he would promise him on behalf of the head of her clan that Lai King Yao would be appointed to the position of deputy head within 3 years. And he knows that the position of the steward, which is identical in authority to the deputy. Qianshong got angry and shouted that the temple of the Buddha's heart could offer similar conditions. The emperor thought to himself that he was not his advisor here. He would have to make the choice himself. Qin thoughtfully replied that he would not join any of them. The girls were surprised by his answer, but Qin decided to go to the temple of the Buddha's heart to train there for a while. Qianshong realized that the heavenly stone of the sacred fire would be transferred to the sole use of her temple, and so she thanked him. The girl thought that if he did not want to join her temple, then so be it. Although she understood that given his talent, Qin deserved much more. Bai understood Qin and decided to leave. Leaving, Qin looked very viciously after her, because he did not really like the Jasper Fairy clan. In a previous life, when a Taoist elder came to the Jasper Fairy clan and demanded Lai King Yao, they immediately gave her to him without any objections, and he tortured her. Therefore, there is no need for this clan to exist in this life. Immediately, the emperor summoned the ring and extended his hand. He had all the bets of the 4 representatives in this ring. He considered it not a bad catch. But the protagonist squeezed the emperor's hand with his own and said that he did not need it. The old man wanted to object, but Qin added that he should consider it his gift in memory of his great army. He wanted his old age to be comfortable. The emperor, hearing the words about the great army, began to cry, and his hands shook, squeezing this ring. He remembered his army and wept like a little boy. Qin stood up and folded his hands and said, "The great army of Prince Shangnan, who won 100 battles, at the appearance of which the sky turned red. His army has always stood for the protection of people, leading his sons and 40 grandchildren died defending the race of people on the borders of the empire. He knows that Zheng gave almost all of his fortune to help the relatives of the fallen soldiers, and he himself, after the concussion he received, practically lost his once unsurpassed cultivation. He considered him a real hero, and wanted to express his gratitude on behalf of all those who survived thanks to his great army." Zhen was very moved and stood up and put his hands on Qin's shoulders. He just wanted to tell him. Qin asked the prince not to worry, no matter what heights he has reached in his cultivation. He swears to always protect the human race, be merciless to its enemies, and work for its prosperity. The emperor was very pleased, and Qianshong added that these were excellent words. After that, we are shown the clan of the Divine Spear, the temple of ancestor worship. Wang and his father prayed to the great-great-grandfather. His father failed him. He was never able to restore the greatness of their family. Ban didn't know what to say, and was all bandaged up because of his wounds. Immediately, his father hit him and ordered him to beat his head on the floor and repent. The son did this and said that it wasn't that he was weak, it was Qin who was too strong, inhumanly strong, and he can't do anything about it. His father was angry that his son was trying to find an excuse before the eyes of his ancestors. He wanted to punish him, but immediately a mysterious door of blue fire appeared. Immediately a certain ghost appeared, who said that he was sorry that his descendants had degenerated and become like this. Father and son were surprised when they saw the real spirit. The ghost sighed and couldn't take it anymore. He noticed that Wang Xuan has the blood of the Wang clan, so he can open up to his spiritual consciousness. Now the task of the rebirth of the family and the return of greatness to it will fall on him. The ghost began to create a kind of blue sphere, which he seemed to take out of his chest. After that, something seemed, and the ghost explained that this is a unique token of their kind. He opens a mountain monastery, where during his lifetime he was engaged in cultivation. The ancestor ordered him to go and collect the remaining treasures there. He must use them for the prosperity of their kind. And immediately the ghost disappeared for a moment. Wang was sure that the ancestor had given him his token. My father's grandfather told me that at the time of their great-great-grandfather, their family was one of the greatest on the continent. No one could match his strength. But one day he insulted the clan of the Immortals, and their family fell into decline for a moment. If Xuan gets the treasures from his mountain abode, they will have hope of rebirth. Wang was overjoyed, because he didn't care what Qin found there in the Great Wasteland. When he gets to the legacy of his ancestors, his days will be numbered. Immediately, someone appeared who started clapping at first and then said that he did not know that the Divine Spear clan was founded by the descendants of a once great family. He realized that he had bet on them in vain. Both turned around, because they recognized this voice, and it was Chu Lin, who had recently been killed by Qin. Out of fear, Van fell on his soft spot and thought that another ghost was standing in front of him. Lin replied that he was alive. Van was surprised, because he himself saw how the protagonist killed him. Lin laughed and said that the Polar Sun clan used to have 18 spiritual sons. A year ago he was the last of them, and now he is the 5th spiritual son. That's because the Polar Sun clan has only 5 spiritual sons left. He asked them where they thought the other 13 had gone. He fought his way up through flesh and blood. When he killed the 8th brother, he appropriated his technique of imaginary death. Lin asked Wang Xuan if he still wanted to kill Qin. Wang replied that he would not rest until he did so. Chu Lin added that now he has a great opportunity to do this. He must lure him, go with him to the mountain monastery, and he will die there. He asked him not to worry. He would not touch the heritage of his family. Lin only needs the sacred fire of the 9th rank of Qin. Wang did not understand how he would defeat Qin, because even the Taoist elder himself died at his hands. The guy assured that he has his own methods. After killing the old man, his next step may be to return to the Divine Sword Empire, which means there is no time to lose. If he failed to entice Qin to come to the mountain abode tomorrow, then they would not like the consequences. Immediately Lin disappeared and Wang asked his father what they would do. The head replied that they had no options. Tomorrow they will go to Qin together and politely invite. Everything will depend on the success of this case. After that night came and they show us the Tianhe. The mercenaries congratulated Qin on winning the Sacred Fire competition. Now they are even more attracted by the Great Wasteland. Everything that allowed Qin to defeat the Taoist elder, he found in the Great Wasteland. Qin replied that all these were trifles that did not deserve attention. The important thing is that tomorrow he will go to the Divine Sword Empire to take revenge on his old enemies. As for the two of them, he approached them and asked them to listen to him carefully. From his words, the girls were very surprised and shocked. The next day at the residence of Prince Shengnan, the Emperor, Xiao, Qianshan and Wanner literally surrounded the protagonist. Wanner wished him an easy road. Xiao asked him to be careful, even though he killed a Taoist elder. But Zhao Dian is a descendant of the Immortal Clan, and he has very powerful patrons. Qin asked her not to worry, because this time Zhao Dian will not escape death.